Welcome everybody, thank you so much for coming. This is our first residency project. My name is Dina Pearlman If you don't know me, I am the executive director of the Pearlman Foundation. My father was the inventor of ARP synthesizers, Pearlman, ARP, and they were your local Boston synthesizer. A lot of people don't know this. So we decided to have a residency project a while back because one of my father's wonderful points, there's a lot of them, was that he liked to mentor emerging musicians and artists. So we thought it would be a wonderful way to bring my father's spirit and at the same point contribute majorly to the synthesizer community. We decided to put out a call for entries last year, not knowing exactly what was going to happen, and we had over 50 people, and people were still asking afterwards. So this is, we said, okay, so there's a need here, there's a niche here. If you don't know Gabriela, she is a producer, composer, and sound designer with experience in sound design and music for linear and non-linear media, audio-visual media art, video game audio implementation, DSP, I don't even know what that is, but you'll probably tell me, I hope. And programming, graduate of Berkeley, and I'm really happy to see some Berkeley in the house representing. That's great. I'm going to pass the mic to Colin Russell, who is a professor at Berkeley, and he's also going to field some questions. So he's giving words.
Hello, everybody. I'm Colin Russell. Most of you, I think, have met me, or at least we met earlier today. But as Dina mentioned, I'm an assistant professor at Berkeley in the Electronic Production Design Department. I'm also a board member here in the Pearlman Foundation. While I was at Berkeley, I was once a student, I learned on the ARP 2600. Many of my students who are here are people who know me from school, know that I talk about it a lot, I reference it a lot. It's kind of what I would consider like my principal instrument. I want to talk a little bit about just the process. It doesn't have to be about specific pieces, but just kind of just the creative process as a whole. Did you find yourself, like you said, that the keyboard was restrictive? I want you to expand on that a little bit. And I'm wondering is if you found that when you sit down at a keyboard, do you tend to make keyboard music? And is that why you kind of have been leaning more towards sequencing?
Yes, you are correct in that. Yeah, I mean, I see a couple of Berkeley people here, definitely, and we have to play an instrument for school and you're practicing jazz licks for, you're practicing licks and vocabulary is good, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, there's certain things we tend to gravitate to depending on what your instrument is and what you want to do, so. Yeah.
Now, I'm also listening to so much of what you've been doing, and there's very much like a generative aspect of that, or I guess a generative aspect to the composition, and that's partly from the sequencing, but so much of it doesn't feel very. I don't mean this to be in any kind of negative light, but it feels less structured and more amorphous, like more formless in the way that this kind of stuff is. It doesn't feel completely sequenced. There's some level of randomness to it. How did you get that generative quality to the music?
Okay, so there's definitely a generative path for one of the pieces that was done with, the ARP 2600 and also sending stuff from BC Rack, if people are familiar. And I think that one was pretty fun in regards to the generative aspect of things. But for the other two, I wanted to have a bit of different flavors, right? So one is all fixed media, just modular, and then the other one has some acoustic instruments that friends very kindly recorded for me. And using that together with modular. So yeah, in a way, the fixed media, I guess the two fixed media pieces, it was really, working how people would just work with tape, get a couple of takes, figure out how it's I like this, and figure out how to, just in a very music concrete type of spirit, figure out a composition from what you already have.
Can you tell us a little bit about, we've heard some of the music as we're sitting in here, we've seen some of the visuals. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the theme of what your original proposal was, what it developed into, and then I'll likely ask you some more questions about how the music kind of connects with that theme.
Yeah, so the original proposal was, in broad strokes, something having to do with like native species or like fauna in Massachusetts, and how that, what's the word I'm looking for? Not evolves, but like plays itself out in ways. And in a way, this project kind of became a game of like having to outsmart myself in that proposal a little bit, if I can be honest. Since it's like very dissimilar to like all my other work. So that was a very fun part. And it ended up being about like how, decomposition is a process that ends up like rearranging things in ways, which I guess really followed like the spirit of like the composition and like how I approached the process, whether I knew it at the time or not.
I learned a long time ago to stop calling them machines. I've been speaking to Jean-Michel Jarre, and I kept calling them machines, and he said, no, these are instruments. And it changed my entire perception of how we approach, there's this market for vintage and this, but these are almost living entities. These are instruments that are passed down from generation to generation. My father's one of his favorite movies was The Red Violin, which talks about a violin that goes down through history and all the people that, connected with this instrument. And so I find that very endearing about vintage instruments, and that we are actually perpetuating more history. So I think it's very exciting for me to see new generations play this. I just have to say that. So, all right. I want to thank you all for coming. you all again. We're gonna